I freaking love Fire Emblem Three Houses. It's not the deepest tactical game I've ever played, but it is definitely one of the most content-rich, packed full of new mechanics, quality of life updates, and 3 surprisingly unique story paths to follow. 3 stories, all in one game. What a value! But I think what has really impressed me is that they kept the Fire Emblem Echoes improvement of fully voicing every line, even in a game this large. Even my favorite JRPGs like Persona do the thing where big blocks of the script are abridged with a single line of spoken dialogue. Like this.
Don't be ridiculous!
I'm especially impressed with the support conversations, which add a little stage blocking and movement with the characters for hundreds of unique one-on-one conversations that better develop the story and backstory for the students and teachers. Fire Emblem supports have come a long way in the last few years.
Well?
Because Three Houses is so massive, I've decided to keep this top 10 to just my first house playthrough, the Black Eagles. I considered all full support sets between Black Eagle's party members, as well as conversations between the Black Eagle students and neutral parties such as professors and Flame. It goes without saying that this video is going to contain Black Eagle's story and design spoilers, so if you want to follow Edelgard's wild ride before watching this, now is your last chance to leave. Oh, you didn't leave. Cool. Let's do a video then.
Number 10.
Hubert and Kaspar. This is the only support set that I picked that has just 2 conversations, but it's so funny I had to put it in here. The lawful evil, perpetually smug, boot-kissing Hubert. He's just so slimy, but I love him. It's like the way we love Snape. He's just Snape. Anyway, he warns the battle-hungry and overly excited Kaspar that his constant shouting is a terrible offensive tactic.
Stupid habit. If you value your life, you'll break it.
Kaspar eventually agrees that his shouting actively endangers the group, and then we get this great little twist from Hubert, who has changed his mind completely.
I'm sorry, what? That's the exact opposite of what you said before.
Just when it looks like Kaspar's brain is about to melt, he delivers one of my favorite lines from the character in the entire game.
Yeah! I'm back! If you want me to shout, then I'm gonna shout! Then I guess I'm gonna have to fight some guys while shouting!
Go get him, Tiger.
Number 9.
Linhart and Flame. Lazy boy Linhart normally can't be bothered to get out of bed, but he's a genius when it comes to crest research, and in this support he surprisingly isn't the one that wants to get away. Linhart spends most of the first 2 supports hounding Flame about some pretty interesting connections between her and Saint Sethleen. It's pretty great seeing the normally calm Flame go on the defensive constantly.
The prevailing theory among respectable scholars is that Saint Sethleen died, having never married.
It's true she's unmarried. Was unmarried, that is.
So much so that she basically spills her major secret right on the table for everyone to discover. But in the A support, instead of activating his big brain to connect the dots, Linhart goes this route instead.
There's an experiment I wish to attempt, although it might prove to be a bit troublesome. It would, of course, require that you and I get married.
I beg your pardon?
Yes. Such parentage has never been documented. A whole new field of research awaits. It would be a worthy experiment, and we'd need only 5 or so children for a good sample size.
You know, the good old let's have 5 kids for science pickup line. Gets them every time.
Number 8.
Dorothea and Petra. I've seen Fire Emblem Three Houses described as Dorothea's harem simulator, and that's not wrong. She's extremely outgoing and flirty, especially towards other strong women. When her smooth talking starts to bounce off the direct and language-challenged foreign Princess Petra, the end results are pretty hilarious.
How about a massage? That may help you loosen up. I have no problems. My body is already able to relax.
NANI? We also get this gem from their B support.
I wanted to secure my future, and my big idea was to marry—
$50 bill!
That is not sounding like a good idea.
$50 bill!
Would be a bad husband.
Pretty much.
After years of building friendship, Dorothea finally finds a way that she can help the self-sufficient Petra by offering to help her with her complex hair braiding and traveling back to her homeland to live with her. You can read just as much or as little into that as you want.
Number 7.
Hubert and Shamir. Hubert is straight up cold and often uses threats and intimidation to get what he wants. Just one problem. Shamir just might be the one unit in this game colder than him, living essentially as a killer for hire most of her life. She sees right through Hubert's BS and is one of the few people to actively challenge his nastiness.
You're unstable, Hubert. Be careful who you threaten.
In their A support, Hubert reveals that sometimes he carries out brutal orders, even executions against his emperor's will, lying to her as long as he believes it's the right thing for the empire at large. This kind of underhanded, cruel tactic would disgust the average character in this game, but Shamir, she's kinda into it.
I have no ulterior motives. I've just grown a little fond of you.
Excuse me? You've what?
For someone so intelligent, you're very dense.
I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think I ship this?
Number 6.
Dorothea and Edelgard. Well, you know what I said about Dorothea and strong women, and Edelgard is about as strong as it gets. Dorothea's so head over heels that she's singing to Edelgard by support C.
Hail the mighty Edelgard. I'm starting to feel more than a little embarrassed.
I think my favorite conversation between these two, though, is their B support. Dorothea defines a large part of her life and her journey through a desire for romance, while Edelgard admits that her life is so busy, she might not ever get the time for a genuine romantic connection of her own.
Something could even spark between the two of us. You and I. Now that is an entertaining thought.
Man, that's just cute.
Number 5.
Ferdinand and Hubert. Ferdinand was initially my least favorite Black Eagles character, coming off as just constantly self-centered and motivated by this petty inferiority complex to Edelgard. So naturally, pairing this dude with the #1 Edelgard stan starts as a dumpster fire. Even when Ferdinand is humbled and accepts his place working under Edelgard, these two continue to hurl insults at each other in disagreements about honesty and loyalty.
Perhaps your advice is simply useless then. Excuse me?
The ice finally breaks when Hubert does the impossible. He compliments Ferdinand on something he believes that he is better at than Edelgard. Ferdinand responds the way any normal human being would.
Do you have a cold? Or the plague? Am I hearing a deathbed confession?
In the 4th support, and yes, this one is a 4-parter, A+er, these two once polar opposites exchange gifts. Their favorite beverages, coffee and tea. Between friends. Boyfriends.
Number 4.
Bernadette and Hubert. Alright, last Hubert one, I swear. The most terrifying member of the Black Eagles meets by far the most timid. While it isn't as deep or touching as some of our past conversations, this one is an absolute comedy goldmine.
How did you manage to faint while standing up?
We also get a nice couple helpings of Hubert's evil laugh. And Bernadette's adorable one. Perfectly balanced.
Number 3.
Edelgard and Byleth. I didn't pick any other conversations with Byleth because the main character doesn't really add that much. You pick a couple of conversation choices, but these mostly exist as a way for characters to divulge their backstory and develop on their own. That said, I think Edelgard's support conversations with Byleth are by far some of the most powerful in the game. Most JRPGs take a while before they reveal a character's dark backstory and main trauma, but Edelgard kinda kicks the door open and flat out tells you right away. She's part of a horrific set of experiments that forced her to watch the rest of her siblings die off one by one. The reveal of her second crest in her C+ conversation genuinely shocked me, and it set the tone for a long and bittersweet campaign with her.
It is the same as yours, the crest of flames. When it manifested for me, I swore a silent oath. For the sake of my family
and for all the poor souls whose lives were traded for my existence. For their sake, I will build a world where such meaningless sacrifice is never again sanctioned. As Emperor, I will change the world. I swear it.
Her S support conversation is also incredibly sweet, which is expected because she's kind of head over heels for Byleth throughout the whole game. Edelgard is the character that you talk to by far the most in her campaign, so it was difficult for me to separate all of those conversations with just ranking my favorite support conversations. That said, I think her supports alone are good enough to land her all the way up here.
Number 2.
Kaspar and Linhart. Unlike most of these supports, Linhart and Kaspar have a lot of childhood history, being good friends since the age of 6 despite having wildly different demeanors. Naturally, they kick things off with one of the most classic childhood arguments of all time. My dad could beat up your dad. Literally.
My father would win, obviously, but it would still be fun to watch.
My father does have the height advantage, though.
Height advantage? What does that matter?
This whole thing then evolves in an interesting way. We transform to a Rocky-style training arc, where Linhart uses his intellect to fuel Kaspar's raw energy, giving him a battle strategy to help him win fights against taller opponents with better reach. There's just something so ludicrous about the whole thing. Linhart isn't even helping Kaspar to fight, like, bad guys. He just becomes super proud and invested in helping Kaspar beat up random people.
Hit him, baby! You're looking mighty good, son. Just like old times, huh?
This is by far the hardest I laughed during my Black Eagles playthrough, and I think that counts for something.
Number 1.
Bernadette and Ferdinand. Even though we learn through other supports that Bernadette has good reasons for it, she is typically completely helpless when it comes to coming out of her shell. So it came as a pretty big shock to me that when Ferdinand pretty forcefully challenged her lifestyle, she whooped his ass.
What am I actually like being alone? Is that so hard to imagine? It's none of your business. Get lost!
I sprained my wrist.
Oh, no. Now you've done it, Bernie. Now you're his eternal rival.
Later, in a warm gesture of respect, Ferdinand spends the entire next support with Bernadette, giving her space, talking to her behind her door, apologizing, and having a genuinely warm conversation. By the final support, we've got him drinking tea, talking about carnivorous plants.
Carnivorous plants are adorable.
And mentioning how they were originally arranged to be married. For a character who is almost unbearably adorable, this is about as cute as Bernadette gets.
With me? It's getting kinda hot in here, isn't it? Maybe it's the tea.
And that's the tea. And those are my 10 favorites. Like I mentioned, there are literally hundreds of support conversations in this game, so feel free to share some of your favorites in the comments below. Somehow, this is my first time doing a main video about Fire Emblem, so I'm using today's video to test the waters. If you guys enjoyed this and it gets decent viewership, I'd love to continue the trend and do more videos about my favorite supports from the other houses and maybe even other games as well. It took me almost 100 hours to do the branching Edelgard routes, and I already can't wait to dive back in for another set of rounds with Claude and Dimitri. Thank you as always for supporting my content, and I'll see you guys next time with some more games and stuff.